All right, over to the NFL now as we look at the PJ pick 5 there. I'm going to take the Cleveland Browns plus 7.5 against the Bears as my first bet up. Man, this is such a great spot to fade the Bears, I think. Chicago's obviously having a really good year. They're 9-4 on the season. A lot of people felt like they were big-time frauds before that 2-game stretch that they just had against Philadelphia and Green Bay. Well, they upset the Eagles. They play the Packers tough. And kind of now the perception around the Bears is this is a pretty good football team. They have 3 massive games upcoming. They host the Packers, then they're at San Francisco, and then they're home against Detroit. So this is a huge stretch on their schedule. They're playing good team after good team, playoff team after playoff team, and sandwiched in between all that, they're home against the Browns on Sunday in freezing cold weather. And it's not like they're playing Miami. It's not like they're playing a dome team. They're playing the Cleveland Browns, who's also used to the cold. They got a great defense. They're going to be able to run the football a little bit with Junkins. So in what should be a low-scoring game, the fact we're getting 7.5 with the Browns, keep in mind, you guys, earlier this year, the Bears were a 3.5-point favorite against the Giants, a 4.5-point favorite against the Saints. The Giants have 2 wins. The Saints have 3 wins. The Browns have 3 wins. Why are we getting 7.5 with the Browns? I think it's too many points. I like Cleveland on Sunday. I also like the Ravens minus 2.5 against the Bengals on Sunday as well. No T. Higgins is a big deal for Cincinnati. He's officially ruled out of that game, even though Jamar Chase absolutely shreds the Ravens always, and we'll get into that in a little bit. Not having Higgins out there is going to be big for Baltimore's offense. And as Henry was talking about the first time, Baltimore on Thanksgiving lost that game by themselves. They turned the ball over 5 times, likely had the ball stripped when he was getting ready to go into the end zone. Zay Flowers was called for a ticky-tack push-off. You know, Lamar was still not himself, but I agree against Pittsburgh. It looked like Lamar started to return to form a little bit. Ravens only gave Derrick Henry 10 carries in that game against the Bengals. I think they're going to give him a lot more on Sunday. So I like the Ravens anything under 3. Minus 2.5 is a good bet on Baltimore. I also like the Buffalo Bills minus 1 against the Patriots. This is a playoff game on Sunday. The Patriots win. They win the division. I think right now, with how it looks like the AFC playoff picture is going to go, with the Chiefs likely out, the Ravens likely out, Burrow and the Bengals likely out, I mean, the Bills are kind of the only team that we have seen win games in the playoffs the last 5 or 6 years, kind of the only team that you trust at this point. Well, this is a playoff game, and they're a pick'em. They lost to New England the first time around. Yes, the Pats are coming off a bye week, and Vrabel's very good off a bye, but New England, as Henry mentioned, has a lot of injuries up front, and that run defense that was one of the best in the NFL early in the season is kind of middle of the pack now. I think Buffalo takes advantage of that. I like Bills minus 1. I also like Arizona plus 9.5 against the Houston Texans. If you can get a 10 again, that's a great bet with Arizona in this game. Houston's one of the hottest teams in the NFL. There's no question. They're probably the best defense in the NFL as well. But the last 3 games, Houston has been an underdog, right? They beat the Bills outright, they beat the Colts outright, and they also beat the Chiefs outright as well. Now, not only are they a favorite, they're a big favorite. They're a 9.5, 10-point favorite. And even though they got that great defense that I love to bet on when they're an underdog, this offense laying 10 points against an Arizona team that's been playing just about everybody close this year, I'll take the Cardinals plus the points in that game. And then finally, give me Kansas City minus 5.5 against the Chargers. I think this is the best spot of the week for any team. LA's coming off a short week, primetime, overtime win against the Eagles. Now they got to go on the road. That banged up offensive line, Herbert with his hand injury as well. Kansas City's in desperation mode, have to win out. Chargers already beat them earlier this year. Everything is pointing me towards Kansas City in this game. I think they win by at least a touchdown. I'll lay the 5.5 with the Chiefs on Sunday. All right, let's talk NFL Week 15 player props, my favorites, before we get to our guy, Shane Thurston. As I mentioned, Jamar Chase always goes crazy against the Ravens. His last 3 games against Baltimore, 193, 264, and 110 receiving yards, which he had on Thanksgiving night. His total's only at 87.5 on Sunday. I think he's getting over 100 again, so I like Jamar Chase over receiving yards. Love Josh Allen over 7.5 rushing attempts against the Patriots. Talked about this bet earlier in the year when he played the Chiefs. It didn't quite go over, but normally it does, and the handicap is the same for this game. Josh Allen in these big games, in these games that have a lot on the line, he will put his body on the line. Last 2 games, Josh Allen has had 8 rush attempts and 9 rush attempts against the Steelers and the Bengals in 2 big games. This game is bigger than both of those, trying to avenge the loss to the Patriots earlier in the year where he had 9 rushing attempts in that game as well. Over 7.5 rush attempts for Josh Allen at plus 110, I think is an awesome bet. So I absolutely love that one. Kenny Pickett over 176.5 passing yards against the Eagles. I like that one as well. Kenny Pickett came into that game last week against the Broncos, and I thought he did a pretty good job. I actually like the Raiders a lot more with him under center than I do with Geno Smith. Eagles have a terrific defense. There's no doubt it's going to be cold, but I think Kenny Pickett going up against his former team can throw closer to 200 yards. So I'll go over 176.5. Kyle Monangai, I'll take his over rushing attempts against the Browns, over 12.5. Monangai in his last 2 games has had 22 and 14 cold weather in Chicago, right? Myles Garrett on the other side. You do not want to get that pass rush going for Cleveland. Ben Johnson's already a guy that wants to begin to run anyways. Monangai, bigger physical back than DeAndre Swift. I think he gets more of the carries. I'll take Monangai over rushing attempts. And then finally, Devontae Adams. I'll take his over receiving yards at 64.5 against the Lions. That total is 55.5. It's going to be a shootout. Fireworks, up and down. Devontae's still one of the best route runners in football going up against that banged-up Lions secondary. So I'll take Devontae Adams over 64.5 receiving yards.